Today's guest is Alexandra Forsyth, cybersecurity specialist, community builder, and the kind of leader who makes technical topics feel human. With a background in criminology and a career spanning cyber threat intelligence, leadership, and strategy, she has carved a unique space for herself in an industry that's constantly evolving. From launching her own retail guide to delivering a TEDx talk on belonging, Alexandra brings heart, clarity, and a whole lot of grit to everything she does. I'm so excited to dive into her journey, her views on cybersecurity today, and how she's helping people and businesses feel safer and more confident in the digital world. Welcome to the show, Alexandra.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much
much
for
for
having
coming
me.
to this show. So I'll straight away jump to my first question. So can you share that moment, when basically that led you from studying criminology to becoming a cybersecurity expert? Because a normal person wouldn't think that, okay, today, I would, want to become a cybersecurity expert. So what was that moment when you decided, what led you to get into this industry?
Yeah, so great question. And I have relayed this story a few times before. When I was studying my master's in criminology, I I chose my modules for the year, and one of those modules was cyber criminology. That was the title. I didn't really know that much in detail what it would cover, but as we got into the module over 2 or 3 months, and there was a project to do at the end, we were covering cybersecurity, the dark web mostly, and how the dark web operates, and anonymity online, and being able to sell illicit goods and services. We were given the opportunity to write a report at the end, and I wrote it on one of the notorious dark web forums at the time. And it was just a great opportunity for me to learn more about this side of the World Wide Web that I had no idea about before. When I was studying my bachelor's in criminology, cybersecurity just wasn't really heard of. It wasn't really something that we were aware of as such at university. And that was, for me, that was kind of the moment where I thought, well, this is exciting. This is interesting. I quite like to go away now. Having finished my master's, it was COVID. During COVID, I had an opportunity to spend 6 or 7 months studying cybersecurity, the foundations, different frameworks, etc., and then went on to apply for many roles and was heavily rejected many times until a company finally said, yes, we'll take you on. And that's how my journey started. It was a very long process. It wasn't just I woke up and thought, okay, today I'm going to be a cybersecurity analyst. It was kind of taking that module, gave me a little bit of insight. I then went away, completed the rest of my masters throughout the year. It was COVID, and I thought, well, I'm still interested in cybersecurity. It's piqued my interest, and now I'm going to spend time actually looking at what is it, how does it apply to organizations, how can they use cybersecurity to their advantage, and then go on to apply for different roles.
So the more you get into the subject, you kind of started liking the subject, and then from there you decided that, okay, I have to explore my career into this industry. Why
No, I
criminology though?
agree.
Why criminology?
It's a great question. I still don't
Yeah,
know the
because
answer to that. I studied a social science diploma before university. So I did do my A levels, but I didn't do very well. I think academically, when I was growing up, I liked school and I liked sixth form and secondary school, and I had friends and I really enjoyed my time. But academically, I just don't find sitting in a room listening to lectures very fulfilling. So I always struggled a little bit academically, and I did do my A levels in, I didn't do criminology, it was unrelated subjects, didn't do very well, so I took some time out. I went and waitress, so I've worked in hospitality for many, many years. I then went back and studied a social science diploma because I was a little bit older, and I didn't want to go back to sixth form and do A levels again. I wanted to do something different. So I ended up studying psychology, sociology, social policy, and criminology. So quite a mix of the 4 different subjects within the diploma for the year. And criminology was just something I gravitated towards. Again, not really sure why. I know people who have policing background, they've worked in probation, criminal justice system. So I've been around that environment for quite a while. So I thought, well, this is interesting. The topic resonates with me a little bit. So I just decided to take it. And then I did really well during my diploma. And I thought, I'll do it at university. And I actually did study psychology and criminology in my first year at
Oh,
university because you can do a major and a minor. So I think I did my minor was psychology, my major was criminology for the first
uh-huh.
year. But again, psychology, I think now, if I was given the opportunity again to go back to university, I'd love to kind of dive into the psychological
Psychology.
elements of the mind and how we work because I'm fascinated by that. But at the time, again, I was just gravitating more towards criminology. And I love research. I love going out there and reading reports, gathering data, putting that all together. I've always loved that side of academia, and even going through to my career in cyber, I just love the strategy. I love the business side. Something about it just clicks in my brain. It just works. I know what I've got to do.
Yeah. Okay. So psychology and criminology. So you wanted to study psychology and you studied psychology. And if you were given a chance, you would love to explore more into the subject.
Yeah,
So,
I would. I think psychology and wellness tend to go
yeah,
together quite well.
yeah,
Wellness is a huge trend in the across multiple different industries, and I've been talking to a few people who operate, they deliver presentations on wellness in the technology and cyberspace on how to avoid burnout, how to reduce your stress and anxiety through routine and different coping mechanisms that you can instill. So if I were to go back now, because I have so much understanding of the wellness side,
yeah.
psychology now to me, I would love to explore that a little bit further.
Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing.
Mm,
I think, psychology, the knowledge of psychology is something which comes in handy in every industry
mm.
because every industry are basically run by people. It is serving people. So yes, I think it's a skill set that comes in handy, with every industry.
I think it's just knowing oneself as well. I think psychology really helps understanding the inner workings of your mind, body, connecting the dots together.
Yeah.
Like I say, I'd love to explore that more, but I've never said that before. So it's actually quite interesting that if I were to go back, I would do psychology. That's the first
Well,
time I've thought about it.
yeah. We are lucky.
Yes.
So, speaking of cybersecurity industry, so when you decided to enter the industry such as, cybersecurity, what were the challenges? Were there any challenges and how did you overcome those challenges? And before you could answer, if you could, answer the cybersecurity, how did you basically manage to overcome the challenges? I think if for a general audience, because many people, there is a lack of awareness when it comes to cyber security. So if you could just explain it in simpler terms, what exactly it is, like in terms of a cyber security in organizations, and yeah, why do we use it and what's the purpose of the cyber security?
Yeah, it's a really great question. It's really hard to answer. I think in very, very simple terms. So my role has always been threat intelligence. Threat intelligence is a way for me to work with organizations and help track different types of cybercrime activity that's taking place, possibly against their industry or against their competitors. And ultimately, we're trying to tell a story through this cybercrime activity. The cybersecurity really are the recommendations that we can offer out to help protect them from different types of cybercrime. So ransomware, which is a type of malware that can impact multiple devices across a network, and it can completely stop an organization from operating there. If they've got e-commerce, it can stop their online operations in store. It can stop their point of sale. Ransomware is a really big type of threat that we're constantly tracking. There are multiple different groups, sometimes working together, sometimes working separately. But I mean, this year alone, we've seen, compared to 2024, hundreds of groups being formed. So you can just see the magnitude of this type of cybercrime that can impact. So in very, very simple terms, cybersecurity we're trying to protect an organization's data, whether a customer or employee. We're trying to protect their assets, so possibly the technology that they're using to operate their e-commerce or in store. We're trying to monitor for vulnerabilities, ways that bad people can get in to an organization and stop them from operating. The cybersecurity it's a lot bigger than that. There are projects you can do, there are frameworks that you can use, but ultimately it's helping the organization to just stay protected because it helps them build revenue, it helps them build their trust, their loyalty, their reputation. We want to keep all of that intact. cybersecurity. But God, if you'd asked me that 4 years ago when I was coming into the industry, I think it doesn't help that there are so many courses online now, and which is great because there's so many different avenues you can go down. So if somebody's listening today who's thinking to themselves, I really want to understand what is cybersecurity, you'd only have to go on YouTube to find a video that explains it for you. So there are so many ways that you can learn in the modern age, but at the same time, there are so many ways that you can learn. So there's a lot of different courses, a lot of different types of information, which differ slightly. So whether or not you can gain that whole picture, sometimes it can be too overwhelming and there's too
Yeah.
much to learn. So as you say, trying to simplify that down is the key point. And I think that's going on to the next question you asked, were there any challenges I faced? Possibly that was a bit of a roadblock at the beginning, too much information out there. And I
Too much.
didn't too much information, and I didn't have a mentor or a coach at the beginning. I'm very honest when I say that. I wish I had. I wish I'd had somebody. I didn't really know anybody in cybersecurity because when I was at university, I mean, my university didn't have a cybersecurity degree, as far as I'm aware. That I could be a little bit misled there. I'm unsure at the time because I never looked into it enough. But I didn't know anybody in cybersecurity. I didn't have a personal brand. I had no network when I was coming out of university. So overcoming that challenge straight away, one thing I do say to students in early careers, get online, build your
Yeah.
LinkedIn, build your network, go to events, start talking to people. That's a great way to learn about cyber, and that's a great way to stay on top of current
Yeah.
trends that are taking place right now. So a little bit of a challenge, too much information, getting overwhelmed before I'd even entered the industry, not really having a mentor or a coach. So the way I overcame all of that and actually entered the industry, it was just a lot of resilience, I think, is a big
Resilience.
word for me. A lot of every time I go to an interview and they'd ask me a question and I didn't know, I didn't understand what they were saying, or they talk about the cybersecurity framework and I think, what's that?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I'd go away and I would learn it for the next time, regardless of if the next interview, they might not even ask me the same question. And 9 times out of 10, they won't. They'll ask you a completely different range of questions. But it was solidifying for me that I was willing to work and I was willing to put myself out there, learn something, and then apply it whenever it was needed. Sometimes we say we're trying to be one step ahead of threat actors. We should also kind of be one step ahead of just cybersecurity in general, just always looking for ways to upskill, always looking for ways to educate ourselves is most important.
Of course, I 100% agree with the one that you say resilience. That even when you used to go to the talks, you if you did not understand anything, you used to come back and basically study on your own, which is
Mm.
something I do as well. And basically meeting lots of people and listening to what they have to say, and learning from other people, and self study and resilience, because you were on it, you wanted to learn about it, you were like, okay, I have to understand about the industry, I have to stay at the top of the things.
And it's really hard. And I'm very, again, honest and authentic with people when I say it's really hard to challenge yourself, go outside your comfort zone. I didn't even know if it was the right career for me. I honestly had no idea. I thought, well, I'm really interested. I'm willing to work. I'm willing to put the work in before I've even been hired. And then after I've been hired and I'm inside a company's environment, I was willing to already go that extra mile, but I still had no idea. I could have entered threat intelligence, completed the first 12 months, and thought, this isn't for me, and that's okay. And I think that's so important to get across. Try things out, give it
Yeah.
a go. You never know what can happen. You might find that you start off in threat intelligence or security operations, a bit more of a technical role, and decide, well, actually, I quite like to pivot in the business. I want to go and do cybersecurity marketing, or I want to do sales, or I want to
Yeah.
do a bit of the more client focused work. There are so many pathways in cyber and not just the standard technical threat intelligence, non-technical routes that you can go down.
I'm assuming, and I can be completely wrong, because cybersecurity, again, it is a technical industry. So I'm assuming the ratio of men and women I'm assuming that mostly there are men and women ratio is lower as compared to men.
I
So
would, yeah.
again, like I said, I am completely unaware of the industry, not completely, but I'm just talking about the ratio. So I think that also, because again, women in technology, there are very few women. I mean, not few, but I would say as compared to men, they are, very, the ratio is not, I would say, equal. So, do you think that that was also a challenge, when you were entering into the industry? Because it's a male dominated industry, and women in technology, again, a vast majority of a vast majority still thinks that women and tech, they are alien to each other. So, I mean, was there such kind of what you call perception around it?
I think for my first two companies that I worked for, my managers were both male, and my manager in my first role, I've always worked around fantastic women and men. I've always felt that I've been able to raise my voice with my managers, regardless of if they're male or female. I've always felt that I've had a seat at the table wherever I've been. I do think sometimes it comes down to, and there might be a bit of a debate around it, but I do think it comes down to having that inner self belief and confidence. I think if you're able to back up your claim with evidence, and if you're able to think to yourself, well, regardless of if there's 50 men in the room and I'm the only female, I'm gonna stick by my worth and I deserve to be here and I have something to say and I'm going to say it. If you go into situations with that mindset, it should ease the internal pressure or stress that you feel. That's something that I learned a little bit later on. Now, that's not to say in my first few years of cybersecurity, sometimes I did feel a little bit of imposter syndrome and I did feel, oh God, I don't know as much as they know on the call, and I'm not sure I even have anything to say. And the way that I overcame that, actually not by choice. So in the beginning, I completed my threat intelligence training, and a few months later, I was asked to take care of a client account very early on in my career, in my first role, and I didn't expect it to happen so early. I didn't feel prepared, to be perfectly honest, and I said to myself, you can either sink or you can swim. You've got to give this a go because you're being asked to do something. That challenged me in the best way. I had to attend client meetings. I had to be the face of the client and be the face of the brand and help them with any challenges that they needed. I had to practice my public speaking, how to communicate, how to get my key message across, how to talk the business and security. So having being given opportunities early can also help you overcome any fear or anxiety or possibly low self-esteem or lack of confidence. And like I say, if you are in rooms where there's a little bit of a disparity and there's more men than women, challenging your thoughts. And if you're feeling a certain way in terms of, well, I don't feel that I have much to say, or I feel like I'm choking up on my words, do you think that potentially you might need to go away and learn a little bit more and upskill in certain areas? Actually, look at the skills that you have, and are there any gaps that you can see? Is that contributing in any way to how you're currently feeling as well? And I always say to people, people don't think about you as much as you think that they
You
do.
think of it
It's a
yourself.
very interesting phrase, and I learned it a year
Yes.
ago. Someone told it to me, and I thought, wow, that's such a humbling moment. People don't really care about you in the nicest way possible. So if you can use that to your advantage and actually say, well, I'm going to voice my opinion, and also gaining feedback is so important. In the beginning, when I was going through interviews and I was getting rejected time and time again, it really stung me and it stung my ego, and it was crap. And I'd walk away and think, well, I know that I'm good at this, so why aren't I getting the role? But demystifying that to yourself and just saying it's not personal. The feedback that you're getting is to help the business. The report that you've submitted, if there are half a dozen comments on it, address them
Yeah.
and move on to the next project. It's that simple. It's for the business, it's for the client. It's just not about you. It's not personal. You're in a professional setting, so go with that. But then also off the back of that, if you're not happy, say something.
Say
And
something.
if you're receiving feedback and you possibly think it's not justified and it's too harsh and there isn't any evidence to back it up, ask the
Yeah. Yeah.
question. But then it's also feeling comfortable to do that. And I know that that's a challenge, and not feeling as though you have a space where you can raise your concerns. I know that that's not possible in all workplaces because possibly the culture or the team, something's not clicking. So there are so many
Yeah.
elements I've just
Yes.
rung off there. There's a back and forth to everything that I say. It's hard.
The 100%, I can imagine. Because, before, inviting you to, this podcast, I have actually thoroughly researched or stalked, your social media profiles, all the articles that mentioned you, from BBC and yeah, other channels. Yeah, yeah. And then visited your website. And one thing was clear that you are this voice when it comes to cybersecurity. You have built up your personal brand when it comes to cybersecurity, that she is the voice to go for when it comes to cybersecurity. So what strategies? I know that you have already kind of answered it in in our early questions, but still, what strategies did you basically use or apply to build your personal brand in what a technical field such as cybersecurity? How did you do that? How did you go about it?
I started really late. Personal brand for me, I'd say in the last 12 to 18 months, and definitely 2025 has really been the year where I've come out of my shell. I do feel as though I know a lot in the cybersecurity space, enough for me to be able to back up my claims if I'm asked any questions about what I say. So I feel confident in my abilities to be the voice, as you say. I'm not the only voice. I have a fantastic community around me. There are certain people who I look up to wholeheartedly who just are doing extremely fantastic work in the field of cyber, and I can only hope that I will be on their level in 5 to 10 years' time. And again, there are people that are coming out of the woodwork the same as I am, as next generation leaders, to really be the voice. So I think in terms of personal brand, it's lifelong. It's such a rubbish thing to say, but it really is lifelong. Your personal brand will grow and
True.
evolve as you do. In the
Yeah.
very early days, it wasn't a priority for me. My priority was
Yeah.
learning. My priority was feeding off of other people's knowledge that they could offer to me. So I wasn't really present, to be perfectly honest, on LinkedIn or social media. It just wasn't my prerogative for a couple of years. And then I started to see people churning out content on LinkedIn. I was reading a lot of articles. I started to put my own blogs out about the retail space because I've worked heavily in this industry. I've been a subject matter expert for hospitality consumer goods. So I have a lot of knowledge to share about that. So I started to just put out a couple of articles here and there.
Yeah.
Again, just nothing really substantial, I would say. I would go to 1 or 2 events a month in London because that's where I'm based, and London is a hub for startups, SMEs, consultancy, big organizations. Everybody's got something to say and they want to use their brand to say it. So I started to go to a couple of events, meet people was a big thing for me because, again, coming into the industry, I was working a remote job for the first year, not in London. I moved to London shortly after that. So I just didn't know anybody. I hadn't networked. I didn't really know what networking was. And then London's just this kind of cultural hub where you can tap into different fields. So going to a couple of events, starting to put out a little bit of content online and just building it up over
Yeah.
time. Do very much separate kind of personal and work. I don't really share too much outside of cybersecurity. My focus is to share my knowledge as much as I possibly can. If I'm attending any events, I'll write some key takeaways. So it's just building it up. I'd say a strategy is doing what you feel comfortable with. So if you don't feel comfortable with writing content and putting articles out there, don't do it. If you
Don't
don't
do it.
feel if you don't feel confident going to networking events, don't go. There's there are different ways that you can share your ideas. You could attend webinars instead if you feel more
Yeah.
comfortable at home,
Yeah.
attending a virtual 1 hour
Yeah.
online
Yeah.
or hosting your own. Again, if you feel comfortable to do that, getting on a LinkedIn
Yeah.
Live. If you don't want to write, you just want to speak. Doing public speaking is a great way to meet people, putting slides together, doing research, and then feeding back your key message. So there are multiple ways that you can utilize your talents, but I would say definitely understanding who you are as a
Yeah.
person. the skills that you have. Like I said, are you a writer or are you a speaker? Are you neither and you're not bothered about personal brand at all and you just want to be behind the
Yeah,
scenes? I
yeah.
know a lot of my colleagues in the past, they're not online. They don't want to be. They're very much anonymity. They're technical. They're fantastic individuals, but they're just not interested in
Yeah.
it. They don't want to do it.
Actually, that's a great point because if you don't want to build your personal brand, there is no compulsion. Because I also know many people who are doing great, who are who are doing great, and they are not on LinkedIn, they are not on social media, and they are like basically industry in their niche. Sorry, they are a leader in their niche. So I 100% agree that if you are comfortable being behind the scene, there's nothing wrong in it. And one thing that I resonated, with what you said at the beginning of the question, which was you educated yourself. And this is something because you need to have enough knowledge so that you can share it to the world,
Mm.
or you can share it on your social media. You need to have enough knowledge. That is something I also believe in.
Mm.
Before, otherwise, people are not going to take you seriously.
But
You can do anything for clickbait, but
yeah,
when you have knowledge, people can sense it. So I 100% agree
and
with
then
that.
I think also growing as a person in the industry, going back to the point I mentioned about feedback, now if I write a post or I share my idea with somebody and they challenge me and they come back with their own thoughts, I love it. Absolutely love it. We have a
Yeah.
conversation. That I'm thinking more creatively from what they're saying. They're bouncing ideas off me, and it's constructive and it's fantastic. And I walk away feeling energized and inspired. But 4 years ago, I wouldn't have felt like that. Feedback it would have hit me hard. I would have been quite sensitive to it. And especially in the online world now, it would only take one person to write a comment and I'd be beside myself and I wouldn't want to do it again. So going back to that, it's taking it slow, but just know that as you evolve as a person, you want the feedback. I really want it. If I give a presentation and somebody says it was great, I think, well, that's not teaching me anything to tell me where I've gone wrong.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily
Very
where I've gone wrong, but how can I improve?
How can I improve?
I
Yeah.
want the feedback. I don't want the niceties. It's not really something for me. I don't self-indulge. I just want to go, go, go. So it's as you evolve in the industry, you just get to know yourself a lot better. And that's why, going back to another point, working out who you are as a person and the skills that you have. I mean, if I look at the younger generation, Gen Z coming into the workforce 2021, they're really hot on it in cyber. They know who they are and they know what they want. So I'm inspired by them, and I feel that the next generation, we are going to have some really fantastic leaders coming to the forefront.
Actually, I 100% agree with you on that. That Gen Z, even I think it's Gen Z, who has also changed the landscape of social media by bringing in the authentic content. And also, by challenging the way we present ourselves on social media, which is very filtered, very what do you call, very nice. Everything is nice. I think, this is something, which I admire about Gen Z, which is showing up online as who you are,
Mm.
and just posting the shiny content all the time. And so that is something I also admire about the Gen Z the most.
Yeah.
I have gone through your a couple of videos, and basically, like I said, that I stalked you, or yeah, you. I know that you give speeches or you give talks, in TEDx community, and so I just my next question is, what inspired basically your TEDx talk on community, and how has it impacted your professional journey and personal journey? Because
Yeah.
again, speaking is something not many people are well versed with, because
Mm.
public speaking is something, it's a challenge, and you have nailed it. And you have basically found your why community, why TEDx talk on community. I think you have already answered this question in some way, that how you basically like to collaborate with industry professionals, you go to events. So one can assume that one can tell that why you are big on community. But still, if you could base, but again, why a TEDx talk on community, not on any other topic? There are many things that you do.
Yeah. So TEDx feels like such a long time ago that I did that. It was October of 2024. And
It's been a long time ago.
yeah, quite a long time ago now. And I've only watched it a couple of times. Again, I don't really watch myself back that often because it's just not for me. But that was such a special moment, and it was really, at the time, a career highlight for me to have delivered that talk. I prepared for 2 months. It became part of my morning routine. My morning routine, non-disclosure, is going for a run, working out, showering, having breakfast, starting work. The TEDx would filter into that, and I would practice every morning. And it was really healing for me to do it on community because the examples that I gave in the TEDx were real life. I'd gone through those experiences. There was one right at the beginning of the TEDx where I talked about going to Cambridge. When I got on the train, it stopped. And afterwards, there were a lot of us in the carriage. We got off the train and we start talking to each other. There was such a sense of community, trying to get back to London, etc. And it's just those moments, I think, in life where, and I have it even now when I'm having a bit of a wobble or the morning's not going the way I want, I receive a text message or somebody smiles at me on the tube or somebody says hello or I say hello to somebody, and it just brings you back down to earth for a
Yeah,
minute and you just think it's going to be fine. So it's those moments I was holding on to when I was giving the TEDx that were just happening all around me. And the idea with the TEDx, I didn't want, although I love my career in cybersecurity, I want to be in it for the long haul. I'm here, I'm thriving, striving towards the goal, which is to work with organizations to help them. I don't want that to define me wholly. I don't want cybersecurity to just be somebody says Alexandra Forsyth and they immediately say cybersecurity. That's not really how I want to present myself. And
yeah,
community, because like I say, I was tapping into it without me really knowing, going to events, talking to different people, that I was building my community around me. I just thought it was different. It was different to talk about it. I'd already seen a few articles floating about late last year talking about
yeah,
community and how people are trying
yeah,
to tap into it more. And then
yeah,
I was reading and researching about loneliness and how they really want friendship and they really want connections. They don't just want it to all be about being online and digital. They want to take it offline. They want to have meetups, and loneliness is an epidemic. So
yeah, true.
it was how do I filter that in as well? Because I've gone through my own experiences with loneliness in terms of coming to London. I didn't know anybody when I moved here. I didn't have any friends for a while, and I was just moving through life solo. So I understand completely about that side of things. So I could relate a lot. So when I was talking about community, it was coming from a place of I see you and I hear you, but this is how we can move forward together through
Yeah,
community, because community is very different from just having your friends and family. It can be people that you don't necessarily see all the time. You just bounce ideas off each other, or you have meetups where you do talk about work or any challenges that you're facing. And it's meant to be a non judgmental space for you, uplifting, empowering. That's what we need. We need more of it in today's society. As we said right at the beginning, it's modern, it's becoming more digitalized. We need to find a way to reconnect with each other as human beings and get the human approach across.
yeah, yeah. Take those connections offline.
Yeah.
So you did not want cybersecurity as your core personality, and you were big on community because loneliness is something you yourself have felt or have gone through. And so this was something, I would say, deeply personal as well, that inspired you to basically talk on community. And also because loneliness, not many people admit, but actually there are many people who are lonely. So yeah, it was great
Yeah,
that you
there are.
addressed.
I didn't say in my TEDx that I was lonely. I think this is the first time that I've actually said that, so I'm not sure what's going on in this podcast today. You're getting all of the juicy bits from
Yeah.
me. I think it's because it's so warm outside that I'm just going completely insane mentally. But yes, I didn't say it in the TEDx, but yes, I've gone through my own bouts of loneliness. I think everyone has in a way, whether
Yeah.
it's mental loneliness or whether it's physical loneliness and you want to be close to somebody. We've all gone through our own battles. And I didn't also want to make the TEDx really about me. I didn't want to stand there and say I'm lonely. I wanted to stand there and actually
Yeah.
try and offer out recommendations for people to say, if you remain open to opportunity, give people a chance, this
Yeah.
can happen for you. I wanted to try and make it as light-hearted as possible, because the topic of
Yeah.
loneliness, anxiety, mental health, they're very serious topics, but we want to try and make it as uplifting. There is light at the end of the tunnel. You can get through it.
Yeah.
Build your network. This is how you can do it. Let's go. It's almost as if you want to take this not sad topic, but you want to take this topic and make it
Yeah.
meaningful and insightful and share kind of data behind loneliness, but then also these are the techniques that you can use.
Yeah.
So it's a two for two, and I tried to bring that across as much as possible. And then since then, really just continuing with community. Like I said, I am so fortunate enough now. And I think after going through a period of loneliness for myself, it makes you appreciate life a lot more. It really makes you appreciate who you have in your life. If you do set firm boundaries, which I notice as well, you're less receptive of certain people if they
Yeah.
are being possibly less authentic or genuine, and you can pinpoint certain activity as well. So it definitely makes you have a new lease on life, more appreciative. It makes you want to have the right people around you. And I'm just so fortunate enough now to know that I do have people around me that I can
Oh,
really count and rely on. So it's a journey, and it takes a long while. Mine was over a couple of years. It was a really long journey. It wasn't just an overnight, but along the way, you come to know yourself and you build up a strong sense of self, but also inner healing and inner
yeah.
love. You start to
Yeah.
love yourself and say, well, actually, when I do have friends again, or when I do have certain people in my life, it's going to be right and they're going to be for me. So it's just taking that time, really.
Yes. Actually, I kind of, resonated where you said that a period of isolation or loneliness, because I have also, gone through the same phase. It kind of gives you the ability to understand that things you can stand in your life and things you cannot stand in your life. It also, teaches you the boundaries you need to have in your life, the kind of people, basically gives you an understanding who you people are and who are not your people.
Yeah,
And yeah, it also be kind of, yeah, no, I 100% agree. This is, yeah, the loneliness and isolation, it gives you something to basically, it gives you perspective. I 100% agree with you on that.
gives you
And yeah, I really
time.
like that. Yeah, you pointed that. Yeah.
It gives you time to just sit with yourself. I think also removing the self-criticism and judgment was huge for me, in terms of maybe this is just a season of my life. Maybe this is the season where I really just get my, can I swear on the podcast? But
Yeah.
really just get my shit together and focus on what's important to me. So yeah, sometimes it's just time that you need, and you have seasons of life all the time, whether it's career or relationships. It's just the journey. It really is.